by freeing women from the necessity of pregnancy, sex, and reproduction would be uncoupled, which would drastically change the imbalance of power in society. Is it even possible? Is there a possibility of human babies coming out of artificial womb, not from a mother's womb? When I first heard the term artificial womb, I thought the process of gestation and pregnancy could be done outside of the human body using an artificial womb. But that's not the case. The concept of artificial womb comes from saving premature babies. 1 in 10 babies in the United States is preterm, which means they are born before 37 weeks. It can be 37 weeks, 32 weeks, or even 22 weeks. Preterm birth complications are the leading cause of death among children under 5 years of age, responsible for approximately 900,000 deaths in 2019. So to begin with, the artificial womb we are talking about today is actually to save those preterm babies. But eventually, if the whole gestation and pregnancy process can be transferred to an artificial womb, we will touch on that briefly later in this video.
Wait a minute, where are we? What is he doing? You've gotten big now. That's time for moving out. Wait, that's not a real womb. Don't worry, you can grow up here.
I'm grown now, and the womb is getting tight for me. Why did you take me out from my womb?
A little bit on the risks preterm babies are exposed to. Preterm babies are born with some vital issues. Digestive issues, weakened immune system, heart problems, and lung injuries are some major ones. Dr. Jennifer L. Cohen, assistant professor of pediatrics and lead author, said, "Once the premature lungs meet air, damage is done in that first breath." Alan Flake, Maryland, and his lab developed an artificial womb model at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia called the Extend model, which is an extrauterine environment for neonatal development. Artificial womb is nothing but a plastic bag filled with lab-grown fluid that provides the baby with nutrition and a womb-like environment until they reach late preterm gestational age. This Extend model is also like that. For the Extend model, when doctors perform a C-section type surgery, they never expose the baby to the outside air. The babies stay in an amniotic-like fluid until they can be placed in the artificial womb. Extend is not the only one. Scientists in Australia, Japan, Europe, and Canada are also working on their version. Not all of them are as advanced, though. So, are we ready to use artificial wombs for all preterm babies now? Not yet. The Extend model is tested on about 300 lambs so far, and the results are impressive. The human trial is awaiting approval. FDA needs to be convinced that babies will really benefit from the Extend technology. They will at least do as well as they might with the current standard of care. That's a very fair argument, right? Instead of going into too detail, if I want to give you an idea of what kind of care is currently available for the preterm babies, here is what it looks like. Preterm babies who are born before 37 weeks of gestation, immediate ventilation and CPR may be needed if the baby is not breathing. Placed under a radiant warmer or into an incubator to maintain body temperature. An umbilical line or IVs for fluids, medication, and nutrition. You can imagine it needs constant monitoring of the temperature, oxygen level, heart rate, and breathing. The earlier and smaller the baby, the more complications and care are necessary. Lungs are often underdeveloped, especially in babies born before 32 weeks. So the baby may require surfactant therapy, which is a surfactant administered through a breathing tube to help keep alveoli open. Continuous positive airway pressure that provides the babies with a gentle air pressure to keep their lungs inflated. Mechanical ventilation for babies who can't breathe effectively on their own. And finally, oxygen therapy. It will be interesting to see if Extend technology can replace all or some of this. One ever-present concern for the very premature babies is brain bleeds due to their brain immaturity and the treatment they have to receive for survival. Now let's see what Extend technology comes with. The transfer process from a mother's womb to an artificial womb is a very tricky part in Extend technology. The baby must be delivered through a cesarean section, and the tubes need to be inserted into the umbilical cord before being transferred into the fluid-filled container. In the artificial womb, babies need to be on a blood thinner to prevent clots from forming where the tubes enter the tiny body. That may put the tiny baby at a high risk of brain bleeding. The FDA will probably approve this technology for use on the infants born at 22 to 23 weeks, because at this point, they don't have very many options. The survival rate of those who are born at 22 weeks is only around 30%. They weigh less than a pound, lungs are still developing. Even the babies who survive at this stage have an increased risk of neurodevelopmental problems, hearing impairments, mobility issues, and other disabilities. So they may approve using this technology to see if the survival rate with an improved chance of having healthy babies is possible. But the gestational age is not the only criterion for the babies to survive. For example, female children do better than male children. The bigger the baby, the survival chances are a bit better. There might be other factors too. Now, if the human test goes very well, can we assume that babies will be able to be grown outside a human body, in an artificial womb? There is no hope there at this moment. We don't know about the future though. Here is why. The fetal development process is a complex chemical communication between a mother's body and a fetus's body. Today, that whole process is not completely understood by biologists, doctors, and medical scholars. Once they understand it completely, then if it would be replicated outside a human body will be the next question and the future endeavors. As you can see, keeping a preterm baby alive and healthy is still such a huge concern. So, developing a fetus and growing that totally in an artificial process is not something we can yet practically think of. But we can dream about it. Maybe it will be a reality one day. If you are interested in history, you will have fun learning about the historical background of artificial wombs. Let's look back at history. Childbirth was totally handled by women themselves and midwives for centuries. It became a part of medical science not too long ago. The idea of growing human babies outside of a female womb is not new. Some really funny ideas became popular in the 1500s, coming from some creative thinkers, I guess. In the 1500s, an alchemist claimed that if one put sperm in a flask alongside horse manure and fed it blood, a small human form would appear. After that, a notion had become popular that a tiny person exists in sperm that can be nurtured and grown in any other mammalian uterus or simply in a beaker. That way, men can take control of the reproduction process entirely. Interesting, right? Let's get back to the science talk. Childbirth became a part of the medical field in the mid-18th century, only in wealthy families in some prosperous countries, when doctors, who were mostly male and trained male midwives, got involved in the health of pregnant women and the birth of a child. It became a bit more accessible, and doctors became more involved in the late 19th century. Having a doctor was not allowed in most societies, not only because it involved money, also because doctors were usually males. So, there were a lot of social restrictions as well. Fast forwarding a bit, we got the incubators for the premature babies. French obstetrician Étienne Stéphane Tarnier introduced the incubators for premature babies at the Paris Maternity Hospital in 1884. He got the idea from the egg incubators used for poultry at the zoo. Creative human mind. The purpose was to create a safe and stable environment for the premature infants born before 37 weeks of pregnancy for complete development. That was a huge development towards creating an artificial environment for the babies to grow outside the mother's womb. The introduction of the incubators significantly improved the survival rates for premature babies. That incubator was a wooden box with a thick glass lid. Sawdust-insulated walls radiate heat to keep the infants warm inside. It had the capacity to hold 4 infants at a time. The incubator was placed on a heated water tank. The heating of the tank was done with gas or alcohol. A thermosiphon was used to separate fumes from the lower compartment of the box from the higher compartment. The infants were placed in the higher compartment. It was far from self-governing, instead required 24-hour maintenance, mainly performed by nurses. The term ectogenesis was first adapted by the biologist and author J.B.S. Haldane in a speech in the Cambridge Heretic Society in 1923. Haldane's speech was published later with the imagination that all babies would be born with artificial wombs by the 1960s. Look at us, it's 2025 now, and an artificial womb is not a reality yet. Sometimes speculation can just grow from dreams, I believe.